Ahoy from Czechia. Well, we're here at Skoda's top secret test track. Not that secret, obviously, if they let me in. We're about 100 kilometers from Prague, and we are here to drive this. This is the new Elroq RS. You might hear some screechy tires and noisy stuff going on in the background. There are racing versions of the Enyaq beetling around here today, plus a classic Skoda rally car. We will come to those later on. But this is the RS. It's the latest RS in Skoda's armory, so it joins the likes of the Enyaq RS, it joins the likes of the Octavia and indeed the Kodiaq. This one is, of course, fully electric, uses 2 electric motors for a combined 340 horsepower and a 0 to 100 kilometer an hour time of just 5.4 seconds. That makes it a very, very quick Skoda RS indeed. This one is finished in the rather fantastic Mamba green paintwork. But aside from that, if you can take your eyes off that for a moment, you will see some significant styling differences down here. You've got an RS specific grille and splitter and front bumper, and you get the kind of cool checkered flag pattern going on here. Around the sides you get 21 or 20-inch alloy wheels, depending on which specification you go for. You get these dark finished roof rails, you get a slightly chunkier body kit. It does look a little bit more purposeful. I mean, if you don't go for the Mamba green, and I do think you should do, it does look a bit more subtle in real life in a quieter color. But before we head out on the road and find out what the Elroq RS is like to drive, we need to check out the interior, because that is actually quite different to what you get in a standard Elroq. So here on the inside, you only get one version of the interior. In the standard Elroq, you get a choice of different types of interior, different color schemes, different layouts. But here in the RS, it's all RS specific, and I have to say, really rather lovely. You get this fantastic suede effect here on the dashboard and a bit of imitation carbon fiber and contrast lime green stitching. That all looks and feels really nice. And you get leather with, again, contrast lime stitching here on the 3-spoke steering wheel, and the high back bucket seats, which I have to say are supremely comfortable. Again, this microfiber man-made suede, which is actually made from recycled plastics, so it's actually quite eco-friendly. Plenty of storage space. Big space here for whatever you need, and more under the armrest, and 2 mobile phone chargers down here, and 2 cup holders. Digital instruments in front of you, nice and neat and simple enough to use. There is a head-up display for this one. You get a big 13-inch screen here in the center of the dash. It's a bit better to use than it used to be, still a bit fiddly, although there are some helpful shortcut buttons for certain functions, proper physical buttons down here. Personally, I'd like to see that a bit smaller. I think it takes up too much space here and it's a bit too distracting, but it's okay to use. And you do get some good physical buttons on the steering wheel too. They're quite handy as well. Overall quality is really, really good, as we've come to expect from Skoda in the past few years. Yeah, you'll find a few cheap and scratchy plastics down here and in the storage area that's down here under the center console, but not too bad in that respect. Certainly, in terms of the money you're spending, and this is a 53,000 euro car in Ireland, don't forget, it does feel like you're getting something appropriate to what you're spending. But the Elroq is all about being practical as well as this version being sporty. So what's it like in the back? So here in the back of the Elroq RS, it's just as practical as the rest of the Elroq range. Honestly, this is one of the best interiors you'll find in any mid-size. Well, I mean, it is technically an SUV, but it's kind of almost like a big hatchback, really, the Elroq. But that's maybe a debate for another day. But I've got loads and loads of legroom, plenty of headroom. I've got handy storage pockets here on the backs of the seats with a smaller pocket here for smaller items like earbuds and so on. Got the same lovely suede finish to the centers of the outer rear seats with Isofix anchors, incidentally, so that is very useful. And there's an Isofix anchor in the front passenger seat too. That's very helpful. There is a flat floor here, but this one has an optional storage box, which is quite useful. This center rear seat is just about wide enough to take a third passenger in the back. I mean, it will be a little cramped if you do that, but not outrageously so. Again, it's quite well equipped. You've got some very nice little clip-up sun blinds here in the back. And the boot is obviously very, very good. 470 litres, and you can get that optional net that goes underneath the parcel shelf that holds your charging cable, and that kind of partially makes up for the fact that there is no frunk in the Elroq. But that's the practical stuff. That's the kind of slightly dull day-to-day stuff. This is an RS. That means we need to go out and give it a proper drive and see what it's actually like from behind the wheel. Well, it's time to find out what the Elroq RS is like to drive, and the good news is it's generally very good. kind of as you would expect of a Skoda RS product. It feels really well tied down. Irish cars will get the adaptive DCC suspension as standard, so you can make it sportier, you can make it softer. That's really nice. And of course there's an individual mode that allows you to do things like have sporty setup for the steering but have soft setup for the suspension. That's really handy, particularly for our roads. It feels really nicely planted. It's not kind of overly aggressively sporty. It's not like a dramatic hot hatch or anything, but it does feel nicely balanced between the needs of having some fun when you're on a nice twisty road like this, and also being comfortable enough and usable enough for day-to-day living. That's a really good combo to have. In that respect, it's actually quite like the Octavia RS, particularly the Octavia RS estate, given the practicalities involved. It's a good balance of everything. So with 340 horsepower and four-wheel drive, you're never going to be short of straight line performance, and that 5.4 second 0 to 100 kilometer an hour time is genuinely impressive. If I have a criticism, perhaps it could be a bit sharper, perhaps it could be a bit more overtly aggressively sporty, but I do think you'd lose some of that nice all-round usability. The ride quality is generally very good. Now this is running on the optional 21-inch alloys. I suspect it might be a tiny bit softer if it were on the slightly smaller standard 20-inch rims. Even so, there's some genuinely rough and poor surfacing here on these roads in Czechia, in the Czech Republic, and it's actually soaking those up very well indeed. It's also notably efficient. We've been averaging around 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers all day today, and that's including some genuinely spirited driving in sport mode, which is not, generally speaking, calculated to return the best efficiency from an EV. Range in the Elroq RS is actually pretty good. Skoda claims 560 kilometers on a full charge on the WLTP test, and I reckon about 450 to 480 kilometers will be perfectly doable. So it's fine for everyday driving, and even pretty good for the occasional long haul, which is impressive considering that this is the top spec high performance sporty model. It also charges pretty quickly at up to 185 kilowatts from a high speed DC charger, so you won't be left sitting around for too long waiting to get going again. So basically it is a typical Skoda RS. It's just sporty enough, it's just fun enough, but it's still very much focused on those day-to-day family-friendly practicalities, and that makes it a really good all-round performance car. Bit expensive at €53,500, but as I say, you can easily spec a standard Elroq up to almost that level. So in some ways, having the RS is almost a bit of a bargain.